Dear Dr. Simao, Dr. Forte and experts, thank you for allowing us this opportunity to address the expert committee. From the outset, we would like to reaffirm the criticism and suggestions outlined in the Joint Civil Society Contribution document authored by the Fight, Think and Do tank. Our NGO is primarily involved in reducing the harms caused by the prohibition system, rather than handling the virtues and medical applications of the cannabis plant. South African citizens are arrested at a rate of more than 600 per day as a result of their relationship with this plant. Mandatory incarceration before an accused is brought before the courts means that tens of thousands of non-violent South Africans have seen the inside of a jail cell. These include patients, traditional healers, farmers, countless youth, among which many are medical and pharmacy students, and even the elderly. The aerial crop spraying regimen to eliminate cannabis cultivation, last seen in 2015, still threatens rural communities in South Africa, despite the WHO publishing reports that the glyphosate poison used by the USA and EU-sponsored helicopters is probably carcinogenic. This major threat for public health and the environment will not go away. It will only go away when the international control bodies admit their failure and put an end to cannabis prohibition in all its forms. The current uninformed WHO scheduling process sets out to perpetuate a system of control conceptualized by colonial governments dating back to the 19th century. South Africa contributed to this in a significant way, as is so pertinently pointed out in the history part of the Joint Civil Society contribution to these proceedings. The onerous procedures that are purported to facilitate access to cannabis medicine in South Africa are based on the onerous procedures inherent in the scheduling of cannabis by the WHO. These procedures only serve to develop a new class of cannabis-related business in the hands of the political and economic elite, focusing on big agricultural and pharmaceutical companies at the expense of the affected populations left behind and still persecuted for non-problematic behavior in their private lives. The WHO Expert Committee celebrates its 59th anniversary this year, yet it seems that you still can't agree on what tinctures, preparations or extractions are, or how to assess their potencies. As is evident from the civil society contributions, the WHO and UNODC have a huge amount of catching up to do with the world's cannabis users and their intimate knowledge of this plant. We have expert knowledge around the science of this plant, its botany, its horticulture, extraction methods, and most of all, we have expertise about the reasons why so many millions of us across the world will keep using this plant despite its prohibition by international institutions. Cannabis in South Africa is a national asset. It is the people's plant, and our people hold their traditional knowledge of its benefits and how to mitigate harms within our indigenous knowledge systems. This knowledge is way beyond the narrow confines of medical uses. The people who use this plant should be termed the experts, with the scientists there to verify our lived experience with their learned knowledge. Set our traditional healers free to disseminate their centuries-old wisdom with our communities who need to be told the truth about cannabis once and for all. In this regard, we cannot possibly imagine such a special meeting about cannabis without the presence of Dr. Zan Kui, head of the WHO Department on Traditional, Complementary and Integrative Medicine. Cannabis is a plant that already provides economic and health benefits for many communities who just choose to risk breaking the law. The opportunity to develop and build on the existing black market is enormous, to create an enforceable set of simple and health-orientated regulations. Cannabis cannot be allowed to be controlled by the narrow interests seeking to perpetuate controls that are not working. Going forward, we as representatives of millions who use, cultivate and trade cannabis in South Africa would like to see an end to the scheduling of cannabis in its current form. You have a responsibility to create the foundation for countries to regulate this plant in a way that is inclusive and accessible for all. Profit is not your ally, but we, the international cannabis community, are your ally. Scarce resources need to be spent on public health education and not on the enforcement of scheduling. Education needs to start with the decision makers at the WHO, which will then hopefully filter down to all of our government departments who are concerned with this issue. The focus needs to be on quality and sustainability as concerns health, the economy and the environment, while safeguarding against excessive controls. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of South Africans using cannabis as medicine, within a traditional or religious context, or as a safe relaxant, have been downtrodden, stigmatized and criminalized. All this for a plant which causes little or no harm to humankind or the planet, especially when compared to others such as tobacco. This expert committee would do well to remember this fact. Cannabis consumption has never killed anyone. We are living in a global village where we have seen a massive change in perception since the walls of cannabis prohibition started crumbling some time ago. It is time for the international authorities to catch up with what is happening on the ground. Keeping faith in the excellence of your expertise, South Africa wishes you all the best for your meetings. Thank you.